Today we're going to start talking about body systems. And specifically, we're going to start talking today about the skeletal system, or all the bones in your body. This is what helps make you, you. The skeletal system contains 206 bones. Some of these bones are quite large, like the bones in your arms or your legs. And some of these bones are quite small, like the bones in your fingers and your toes. Some of these bones are irregular in shape, like maybe the bones in your spine. And some of these bones have actually some very long, flat surfaces, like, for example, the bones in your shoulder. Bones are made mostly of calcium, and this is why your mom and your grandma have always told you to make sure that you drink enough milk. This will help you build healthy bone and help improve your bone density. Lastly, most bones in the human body are actually hollow. The spaces in the middle of these bones help produce important things for your body, and we'll learn about that as we go. If your bones were not hollow, you would actually weigh approximately 30 to 40% more than you currently weigh. So as an example, if you weighed 100 pounds, you would actually weigh about 130 to 140 pounds if your bones were all completely solid. This would add a lot of extra weight and a lot of extra pressure to your whole body. Your skeletal system has a couple of key functions. First of all, it provides stability and support. It will protect vital organs like your brain and your heart and your lungs. It gives you a definite shape, which basically means the way that your bones are organized makes you look like a human being and not like a cat. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, they provide attachment points for muscles, tendons, and ligaments. And this is what is going to allow you to do all the movements that you want to do. There are two different types of material that hold you together. You have ligaments, which help hold bone to bone, and you have tendons, which help hold bone to muscle. Ligaments are typically found, or always found, in the joints. So if you think about your knee or your hand or your elbow, it's actually ligaments that are holding those individual bones together. Tendons, however, are holding bone to muscle. And by holding bone to muscle in a very specific way and being attached in a very specific location, this is what allows you to bend your leg when your muscles tense, because when they shorten, they're going to pull up on a fixed point, which is where that tendon attaches, and to also extend. So when your muscles relax, that leg will go back to its normal or straight position. Here are some quick little diagrams to help explain this. You can see in the picture on the left where you have tendons holding muscle together, and this is actually an example of the elbow. What you have on the right are the ligaments in your hand. So all these little tiny ligaments help hold all those little tiny bones together. There are a number of different types of joints in the human skeleton, and that's what we're going to go through next. We have hinge, gliding, pivot, ball and socket, and immovable. As you follow on the slides to come, watch the short video explaining what each joint type does that is located underneath each diagram. Now that you have a better understanding of the joints in your body and how each of those joints work, let's take a little bit of a closer look at the structure of bone. What we have here is an example of what is called a long bone. And what you can see is that at the end, where kind of these bumpy parts is, this is what is called the epiphysis. Epiphysis just basically means end, Greek word. What you have down the middle is diaphysis. And again, this basically means middle, or the long part of the bone. And what is especially important to notice is, like we talked about earlier, you can see all this kind of empty space through the middle of the bone. This is what we mean when we talk about bones being hollow. Around the edges of the bone, all right, what you have is what is called compact bone. Think of this like a hard shell. What you have inside of that hard shell is what is called spongy bone. So this is still a bony material, but it is a little bit more flexible and it is a lot less dense. And then what you have down the middle of the bone in these really truly empty spaces is what is called marrow. And you've all heard of bone marrow before. And again, as we continue through this unit, we'll learn about some important things that happen or occur for our body in bone marrow. Obviously, bone is a living thing. So bone does need its own blood supply. So we have to supply the bone with blood, nutrients, oxygen, etc. And we have to take out all of that used up material, carbon dioxide, waste, etc., so that our bodies can get rid of it. Now, if I take a look at a real X-ray of bone, and this is actually an MRI, what you can see is, all right, that hard shell around the edges. And as you get closer into the middle, you can see how things get a little bit spongy or a little bit more spaced out. This is, again, just important to know about the structure of bone. If I was to take something and cut it long way, so let's say we took your leg and we cut it in half between your knee and your hip, and we looked at the end of the bone that was inside your leg, again, you can see that there's this really densely packed bone around the outside. And as we get closer to the middle, you can see that things actually get nice and open, spaced, and fairly spread out. You can also see, if you look really carefully here, all these little channels. They look like little riverways. And again, this is where that blood supply would come in and that waste supply would go out. Now, lots of people may be having questions about arthritis. And what is the difference between normal bone and arthritis? Well, arthritis is basically just bone that has lost its density. So on the left-hand side of our picture, what we have is normal bone. And you can see that that structure is fairly nicely put together. It's there to support and provide you with strength. When we lose our bone density and when arthritis starts to really kick in, what we start to lose is that bone density. So one of the things that you guys still have the ability to do, and you know this from health class, is continue to build your bone density. You can do this through proper diet, exercise, lots of water, and of course, ingesting some amount of calcium in some way, shape, or form. Because you want to make sure that that stays nice and strong and nice and dense. Now, here's just a interesting picture about what happens if we fix bone or if we break a bone. We hear these two terms, break and fracture. Fracture basically refers to a crack. Break means that the bone literally came apart and is completely unopened, or has come completely apart from itself. This is an X-ray from an Olympic athlete named Richard Murray. And about 8 weeks before the Olympics in 2016, he was on a training ride and he got hit by a car. What you can see here is the break in his collarbone. And you can see that doctors have had to go in and they've put this plate to hold things in place. And you can see that they've literally screwed everything back together. Why is this important? Well, because 8 weeks later, he actually performed and participated in the Olympics. So you can see after 4 weeks that what was once a really noticeable crack or a really noticeable break where his collarbone had broken has basically grown itself back together. Now, that's been helped along by this plate and these screws. But again, medical technology has helped him be able to fulfill his dream and be able to participate in the Olympics.